Keeping your business healthy in today's marketplace can be a challenging and overwhelming task. From the threat of litigation inside and outside your organization and the inefficiencies that can rob your bottom line as a result of unproven marketing programs, the deck can be stacked against you. To get ahead of these challenges and stay ahead of your competition, the Bottled Business Sense Show provides practical business solutions that uniquely emphasize key legal principles, management techniques, and marketing strategies to protect and ensure the longevity of your business. You'll learn how to implement marketing and protection principles equal to those used by today's most successful corporations. Join your hosts Bill Bernard, Rick Moscoso, and Steve Smith for some high-energy discussion that will inspire you to take control of your business so it can prosper in today's consistently challenging business environment.
Well, good morning, everyone. Today's Tuesday at 10 a.m. We're here again on the Bottled Business Sense Show. I am Rick Moscoso, one of your three co-hosts this morning, and like to say a welcome and a happy holidays to my other two cohorts, Bill Bernard and Steve Smith. How are you guys doing this morning?
Doing great. Happy holidays to you and Bill.
Yes, guys, how are you? Good to see you. We're here as always, even through the holiday season, to help our business owners protect their business and make sure it's functioning properly from a marketing and business standpoint, so they can be profitable all year long. We don't stop even at Christmas time, right?
That's right.
As long as we've got internet frequency, we're good to go, right?
That's right. We're ready, and we've got a great topic this morning, excuse me, as I understand it. So why don't you guys tell everybody what we're going to talk about today?
Steve, this is your
this is my bailiwick
expertise, and
okay.
This is really good timing, because as we cruise into the holidays here, we tend to kind of take a little breath, take a little breather, think about family and friends that are going to be visiting during the holiday season, but then also in the back of our minds lurking is the beginning of the new year, and what better time to make new goals for the new year. Talk with our coaches like Steve and figure out what we're going to do differently this year to be more successful. So I'm going to hand this over to you, Steve, and let's talk a little bit about what you have planned for us for the new year.
Okay, so here's typically what happens at the end of the year. People, if your business is on a calendar system, you tend to wind down because you're finishing up with your programs, your sales effort, getting your books in shape. And what I find all too often is that companies don't take the time to really evaluate what happened during the year, what they were successful at, what they missed the boat on, and really sit down and actively plan for a better year next year, as opposed to just taking last year's plan, putting a new date on it, and running with it again. So I think it's really important for anybody that owns a business or is in a function within a business that's a part of the planning process to really understand what it takes to actually transform your business into something much better that's a clear distinction, in terms of results from next year versus what you got this year.
And Steve, at the end of the year, I think it would be natural for people to have, as Rick and you mentioned, have a lot on their mind with the holiday season and shopping and everything else, not to mention finalizing their taxes and getting all their books ready to be examined and all that good stuff. And so out of all this stuff that you have to take a look at in order to make your business more profitable in the coming year, I guess my question is, where would you start? What would be the first thing that you would do?
Well, typically what I tell clients, and it's a variable starting point because it really depends on what you've done prior to this conversation, but what I tell clients to do is pull out the goals that they set for this year and refresh. If you're not the kind of company that is constantly talking about goal achievement every single month, take a look at the goals that you had established for this year and just basically create a scorecard. Where did we hit? Where did we achieve and overachieve, and where did we fall short? Maybe there's some things that we had on the books that we wanted to do and we never even got to them. So you really have to reorient yourself with what your expectations were for the year that we're now getting ready to end.
And so that carries with it, obviously, a hope that you have the kind of business owner who who is keeping track of their goals, right? I mean, that.
Well, either the business owner or the management team. For me, some of the best run businesses I've either been a part of or worked with are businesses where all of these goals are transcended down to every single person in the organization, because everybody in the organization, what they do, if it's purposeful and if it's directed, should be tied in some way to an overall goal that's important to the company. So, somebody in the organization should have been responsible for measuring and recording what you succeeded at and what you fell short on. And that's important, and it's important for a variety of reasons. One, most of the time, if people miss a goal, there's all this analysis and all this, discussion that takes place about, why we didn't hit it, why we didn't hit the revenue, why we didn't hit the client acquisition, the profit margin. So people want to know, let's figure out why we couldn't get something done. Well, I say that's great, but do the same thing with goals that you achieved. Because many times people achieve goals, they don't go back and say, okay, what did we do that we actually got this so we can replicate it and do it again?
So these why questions then would, I would presume, would naturally lead into a consideration of why they might need somebody like you to come into the picture and help them with this analysis, right? I mean, it seems to me plays right into your ball court.
Well, it does, but most people, once they get used to thinking this way, they can do this themselves. I mean, as a business owner, you can sit down the first week in January after you've got all your numbers and your stats and your records kind of brought up to speed for the end of the year, and sit down and look at some of your vital statistics, your top line revenue, the amount of clients that you've acquired and held on to, maybe the profit margins of various lines that you have. If you have multiple stores, Bill, if you've got a chain of stores, how well did each store do? What your costs were in terms of your marketing costs, your employee cost. Did you have problems throughout the year that cost you things that you weren't prepared for? So taking a real good look at all of the different aspects of your business and trying to quantify them in terms of what did we do to make that work, to hit the number? Maybe what did we do that caused us not to hit the number? What kind of unintentional results did we have? Every business, sometimes, if they're really active in what they do, they're going to get some freebies. Some things happen that they didn't expect, but they were good things. And likewise, you're going to have some things happen you didn't expect that were bad things. And all I say to people is, before you decide your next year what you're going to put on the scoreboard that you want to achieve, make sure you really understand how your business operated in the year that you just finished.
Well, let's say either through help that you've given these business owners, or if they've come to these on their own, if they've answered these questions on their own, once they understand their goals for the coming year, what's the next step for them to do? What do they do then, Steve?
Okay, in a lot of cases, when meaningful goals have been set, and this is a really bad comparison, but I'm going to throw it out anyway because there's kind of a story to this. How many of you guys during New Year's? How many of you guys set New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, I'm bad at that. I don't know about Rick,
but we all do that.
Okay. Yeah. See, I stopped doing that a long time ago, because what I realized was you're setting these things under kind of aberrant conditions anyway. You've had a couple of pops in, you're probably not thinking straight right off the bat. But
no, we never do that.
But usually by Valentine's Day, you've forgotten all about it. Most New Year's resolutions die a miserable death 3 weeks into the new year. So there's really no intention to work them long and hard enough to actually make them work. So resolutions are just off the boards for me.
Well, yeah, and the most typical one you hear, right, Steve, is the one, well, I'm going to lose 25 pounds.
Yes, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to learn a language. I'm going to play an instrument. All this kind of pie in the sky stuff. Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is because many businesses treat their annual goal planning and implementation process the exact same way. They pull the management team together, they compile all their information, they evaluate, where they are in the marketplace and what they're trying to, accomplish to grow their business for next year, and they get it all done. It's in PowerPoint slides. They've all got these little books and everything. And 30 days into the new year, nobody's looking at it. Nobody's paying any attention because they haven't taken the overall annual goals and they haven't chopped them down into more, more immediate type metrics like monthly and quarterly and stuff like that. And does that sound like a pain in the ass? Absolutely. It's absolute pain in the ass. But it's the only way to make sure you stay on track, so you don't forget what you set goals for. And in some cases, by the end of March, you're looking around, you can't even find the manual anymore that you put together with the goals in it. It's a mindset thing. It's a discipline for saying, now that we have these 8 or 10 or 12 goals that are really going to be the benchmarks of how well our company does in 2016, the second thing they should be sitting down and thinking about is, how are we going to administer this? What systems or procedures are we going to put in place that's going to keep us focused on these and keep us on track, so that we actually know at any given step of the way that we're going in the right direction?
Yeah, and some of that might involve new legal ideas, new marketing ideas, perhaps hiring more employees. This calls into question, this is a great topic, because this calls into question something you and I discussed a long time ago. In fact, I discussed with Rick as well. And that is, you not only have to work very hard, because this is a lot of hard work, it seems to me what you're saying, it makes perfect sense, but it's a lot of hard work. And you not only have to work hard at whatever profession you've chosen, but you have to work hard as a businessman to keep your business running the way it should, which may have things involved there that have nothing to do with the actual profession that you've chosen.
Absolutely. The profession and even the size and the scope of the business doesn't really matter. The bigger and more complex the business is, the more you have riding in terms of how well you manage your goals and your performance metrics and things like that. But the bottom line is, your business will follow you anywhere you go. So think about this. Think about you saving up for a number of years because you want to take a really, really good vacation. And the day that you're on vacation, you just pack up your car and get it and you start driving.
Yeah, that's good.
Would you ever do anything like that? Would you ever spend considerable money on a vacation and not plan ahead for it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's actually done that, but you wouldn't do that for something that you've really valued and you've looked forward to all year. You shouldn't do that with your goals that you've set that are going to be the benchmarks of how well you do with your business.
Well, let me ask you something, Steve. The topic, the title of the show is how to prepare your business for new levels of success. But would you say, and I'm just going to throw this out there, would you say that if you're just starting to look at your metrics and starting to prepare for the new year, wouldn't you say that's a little bit late? Because any well-run business is always looking at their metrics on a 30, 60, 90 standpoint. And maybe the more appropriate title should be how to implement these new strategies for new levels of success at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, absolutely, Rick. There's the planning, and then there's the implementation phase. And really, when you think about it, if your business runs on a fiscal year, January through December, your pre-planning, your data gathering, your evaluation, your market research, looking at opportunities that you may want to consider. All that stuff should probably be done in October or November the previous year. Because if you wait till January 1 and you get everything nailed down and you get serious about what you're going to actually devote your time and your resources to, you could be staring at February 1 before you actually start doing anything. So, while I caution people to make sure they do it early rather than later, that's not a killer. That's not a deal killer, because there are some businesses where January is just a complete lull, especially if your business has cycles to it and the holiday seasons are a big area for you. You could spend January doing all your planning and just make sure you've cycled up and you've got everything in place so that when the real critical points of the year come for your industry and your business, you're ready to go. So you really have to understand your own business well enough to know, when should I be doing the planning so I can get the full 12 months out of the performance I need to drive my revenue, drive the scale and the scope and the profit of the business.
Yeah, I would interject and say, I think. And see, sometimes, folks, we do this on the run. You got to think quick on your feet, and you got to make changes where necessary. But I think how to plan and implement your as Rick was saying, I think how to plan and implement should be in the title, because I think that really involves the full gambit of what you got to do. And I think that in order to be sincere at this, man, you've got to be able to make changes when you get some good ideas, and you got to be able to have the gumption to institute them and see what happens. So where do we go from there now, Steve? Now we've got the planning, we've got the implementation now that we're going to put in place. So what's the next step for the business owner looking to really make a bang in the coming year?
Well, so the next step actually falls between the planning and the implementation.
Okay.
And that's the evaluation portion, where you look at all the great ideas and you look at all the circumstances that the ones you accomplished, the ones you missed out on from last year, and you've got all this information in front of you, covering all aspects of the kind of business you have. Mm-hmm. At some point, it's the old adage of less is more. Sometimes you have to go through and prioritize stuff and say, what's really most important for us to achieve? There's probably a lot of things on this list that we'd like to do, it'd be fun to do, it'd be kind of cool to do, but if the things that are on that list don't immediately support growth, revenue growth, bottom line growth, margin growth, market share growth, whatever is important in your business, in your industry to be focused on, you've got to make sure those are part of the final team, that survives the cuts. And you should be cutting a lot of stuff. Well, that sounds good now, but later on in the middle of the year might end up being no more than a distraction.
And these are things that the business owner himself or herself need to be directly involved in, right? Not
absolutely. No. You might want to have your immediate team involved because you want input from them. They're the ones closer to those particular disciplines, so that they can offer you insights that you may not have yourself. But ultimately, you need to be making decisions about, are you going to expand your product line? Right. Are you going to add another location? One of the things I find with businesses that either get into a brand new product line or attempt to open another location as part of their growth strategy is the one thing they don't do sometimes is sit down and say, okay, if we're going to open up a new location and we already have two, let's say we have two and they're like 5 miles apart, and this other one is going to be like 8 miles in a different direction. We're going to try to cover the county or the city wherever we happen to be doing business. The first question you have to ask yourself, and what you have to look at, is our existing structure and our management team, are they strong enough to be able to get through all the groundwork and the pre-planning launch that takes place before you can actually put another location into existence? Mm-hmm. Because one of the things that can happen is you put all your time, your resources, and your focus on getting this new location up. Well, the two that are there now creating all the revenue and the profit for you, they start to dwindle a bit because people aren't, they don't have the ability to take on more. To make sure their capacity covers not only running the two that are making all the money, but the third one that's getting ready to be launched come April 1. So you really have to look at your people structure. You have to look at your systems and make sure if we let these things kind of go on idle for a bit, are they strong enough to run by themselves so that we don't end up opening a new location and have one of the existing fall on hard times?
Yeah, and let me throw in a legal tip here, because what Steve's been talking about, growing and prospering in your business, which is one of the mantras that we profess on this show, we can show you now how easily it coordinates with protection, which is our other mantra, and that is, if you're going to open up another office, for example, and this is something you've been thinking about and planning, and you want to evaluate it, and then you want to implement it, all the things we've been discussing today, make sure, for example, that you don't go up and open up an office without checking out the legalities. Don't open up an office in another town that might not be zoned for your business. Don't enter into contracts with landlords who maybe haven't advised you that might be the case, because now you're in a battle with the city and with the landlord. And the landlord and the city are going to say, yeah, well, that may be true. Maybe we screwed you over, and maybe we did it intentionally, maybe we did it negligently. But you know what? You should have done your own due diligence and figured that out too. So,
and hey, Bill, and to that point, depending on the size of the company you're talking about, in those kind of cases, if I'm working with the owner and I'm kind of helping guide them through that process, the first thing I would probably tell them is find yourself a good commercial real estate broker, somebody that knows how to do the research, knows how to negotiate with the landlords in different cities. It can bring all that stuff to the forefront so that you don't have to spend time researching it, and you have somebody out there doing it on your behalf. So let's face it, in a big part of running a business really well is leveraging the expertise of other people. So in other words, if I had a business that had some legality, consequences to it, I would never try to handle that myself. I'd come to you and say, okay, take a look at this and tell me, where I'm good and where I could potentially, put myself into jeopardy. Right. So I think in all of these cases, you really need to understand that if you're gonna go and offer a new product line, if you're gonna open up in other locations, if you're gonna expand, maybe you're gonna move from the location you have into a bigger one because you're out of room, and the only way to grow is to just get a bigger place to operate in. You start pulling people out in the marketplace that can help you with that, so you don't have to worry about those kind of details.
Right. And one other legal hot tip real quick before we get back to the mainstay of the show, because I get this question all the time. This is a perfect example of what you would put in your minutes for your director's meeting if you have a corporation, or if you're having a membership meeting in your LLC. This is what you put at the end of the year, or even in the middle of the year. For next year, we are planning to open up an office in such and such city. It's going to take X amount of dollars and X amount of employees. These are the things, folks, that you enter into the minutes so you satisfy the requirements that the Secretary of State mandates in order to keep that business entity intact and not being attacked from the outside. Well, this has been fantastic. I don't know, do we have any follow-up questions, Rick, or do we have anything else to add?
As we're talking about preparing your business for the new year, where do you find yourself getting pulled in to a business who has done some pretty good planning? Do you see them after they've looked at their business? It's like, holy cow, they're in distress. They need to do something different, but they don't know what to do. Or do you find yourself getting pulled into a business to help strategize? A business that's been successful, that's doing going through some growth phases, that wants to do some new things but doesn't know how to do it.
Okay, every one of those scenarios is a real possibility that I've already had a fistful of clients in various industries ask me to get involved in. But I'll tell you where all those intersect. All of them intersect when the company starts to realize that the only way they can implement their strategy or meet their goals is if they can find a way to harness the collective talent of the people they've hired. And as stupid as that sounds, many times if business owners haven't really been schooled well or have a lot of experience in working with people, the people side of the business, not the technical side, it's working with the people that you've just hired. If you don't have any good background or understanding about how to motivate and direct and keep people moving forward so that they're doing all the heavy lifting you've hired them to do, then the business owner gets stressed out because they feel like, oh my God, I've got to do all this stuff and there's not enough hours in the day and I don't know how to do half of it myself. And then I say, okay, well, you've got a whole staff out there that you hired. Yeah, but I might as well do it myself because I can never get them to do what I want them to do. That's the problem. That's the problem right there. And there are techniques and there are skills and there's procedures for getting people in all facets of your business running in parallel directions to where they're all working on their own areas of expertise. But it's like a sports team. I mean, I'll tell you a great example in football. At the end of every year, they have the Pro Bowl, right? And they usually have it over in Hawaii. So what they do is they pick the best single player in the league, for each position. So you have all these guys out there on the Pro Bowl field. They're all wearing the same colored jersey, NFL versus, East versus West or whatever. But they've all got their own local helmets on. So you got all these different helmets running around the field because all these guys have come from different teams. Well, it's an interesting game to watch, but if you really pay attention to how the plays are executed, you find all kind of mistakes because these guys have never worked with each other before. And that's kind of that's the same thing that can happen in a business if the business doesn't focus on getting people to work in concert, to collaborate, to understand what each other's goal and how, the handoff takes place between sales and marketing and things like that. If you don't have a culture built on that, then you got a whole bunch of people that showed up because they got hired there, but they don't work well together, and the owner doesn't know how to focus them and keep them motivated and directed. So any kind of goal you set at the beginning of the year dies a miserable death by Valentine's Day.
Well, you and I think of both in our respective businesses experienced clients where there's an over delegation of duties, so to speak, Steve, and we've also noticed that some people are unwilling to delegate when they need to. So there's a delicate balance there, isn't there, that you've got to recognize?
I think for most businesses that have multiple levels of people, they've got baseline employees, they've got managers, they may have a leadership team, a C-suite. Delegation, effective delegation, is one of the biggest benefits of a company like that. And believe me, it's not a difficult concept to understand, but there's a lot of nuances to it that people just don't get right a lot of times. And as a result, the message that gets curated in the president's suite never quite makes it down to the floor. And so you have people out there that are operating with different attitudes about what's important to the company, what the company wants versus what they see and hear. And all of that kind of stuff can really screw up a company's ability to operate as a well-oiled machine.
Right. Well, I know we're running short on time, but I have a request before we end the show, Steve, and I think that we ought to make that the topic of another show, when and when not to delegate. I think that would be very interesting to
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think you're right. Yeah, it's a topic all by itself. But for more people, if they get comfortable with it, what they would really find is that they could do a hell of a lot more without spending so much physical energy trying to get things done.
Yep, I agree. Well, it's been a great show. I really enjoyed this immensely. I truly have. Any final thoughts before we close, Rick?
No, I mean, this is a great segue to an episode from a couple of weeks ago. Steve talked about how to attract the best and brightest based on your company's culture, and hopefully, you are attracting the right type of people into your business that fit the mantra of your existing business, and now it's just a matter of fine tuning it so everyone's on the same page, so you're moving forward towards the same goals.
Right.
Yep. I agree. Well,
Steve, this is great information, and I appreciate your time here during the Christmas week. And what's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you in case they want to reach out and just bounce a few questions off of you?
You know what? There's a couple of things you can do on my website, which is growthsourcecoaching.com. My office phone number is on there. You can call me. You can get my email off of there. You can send me an email. If you don't want to have that direct contact right off the bat, I've actually got a free service on there. It's called Ask Steve. And you can go on there and you can tell me give me a question, give me a little background, and within 24 hours I'll get back to you and give you a variety of options that you can consider to either address the issue you're dealing with or find resolution in some problem you've got. So there's multiple ways to get value out of connecting with me. Obviously, if it's urgent, the phone's probably the best way to go. But you may, in just going around my website, you might find articles and videos and things like that can answer some of the things you're looking for. So I invite people to check out the website first, and if they want to call me direct, there's my phone number or my email. There's a couple of different ways you can contact me.
Great. Well, I'd like to take the opportunity to wish everybody a happy holiday season as we close. I hope everybody's appreciated my green Christmassy outfit here. And
Bill, you need lights. Where are the lights, Bill?
Yeah, I was going to hang some little balls from my ears, little Christmas ornaments, but I figured I better not.
I have the hat here for you, just in case you're in need of one.
No, I think a wreath around the head would be a good.
Yeah, like Julius Caesar, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, from all of us at the Bottle Business Sense Show, onward and upward toward the start of a new year. I think this is a great topic to lead us in that direction, and we'll see you all next week, same time, same place. So happy holiday season and best wishes for the new year.
Yeah, same to you guys. Take care.
Happy holidays, everyone.